Welcome back everybody, my name is Pip and I'm a baby army. Today's video is going to be me doing sort of a kind of review of the individual interviews that BTS did with Rolling Stone. I've done a reaction to the group interview that they did with Rolling Stone. I'll leave that link down below if you want to go and have a look at that. But rather than do individual reactions for each of the individual interviews, what I did was I watched them all, but then took notes of how I felt about the interviews, my favourite parts, and I've got like little clips here and there to share of like my favourite parts of the interviews. I will do a bit more of a general review of the interviews at the end of the video. But first I'm going to go through each interview individually and talk about them in a bit more depth. So I watched them in the order that they were released, which is thankfully also fanchan order. So I started with RM's interview. I felt like RM's interview was, I mean they were all different from each other, but I felt like RM's interview was a little bit different. First of all, he did it completely in English, which I admire. Very impressive when English is not your first language. But there was a tiny little part of me that was like, I'd have been okay if you'd have done it in Korean. It would have been fine. I always worry that sometimes you miss out on some of the nuance because English is not his first language, and that's not a criticism of him choosing to do that or anything. This is just a personal preference from me. But very impressive that he did a full interview in English, definitely. I would say one of the major things in RM's interview, and the thing that has really stuck with me, is how he talks about his mental health throughout the interview. Initially, I think towards the beginning, he was talking about how his mental health sort of fluctuates throughout a day, starting off the day feeling quite good, but then feelings of anxiety and stress creeping in until he gets to the point at night time where he feels quite anxious and stressed. I found that really relatable. So that is how my mental health works a lot of the time. Not always. Sometimes like I wake up anxious and stressed for some unknown reason, but a lot of the time I'll wake up and I'll be like, right, I'm ready to take on the day, and then just as things happen, or you know, as thoughts sink in throughout the day, I just get more anxious and more stressed. So I found that really relatable. I'm sad that he experiences it, obviously, but I found that really relatable personally. I also liked that he basically confirmed that they are, with their new music, that they're coming back to where they started from originally in terms of like tone and the type of music that they're going to release. I think there's been a lot of speculation around that. I hadn't done this when I watched the interviews, but as of me recording this video now, I have now listened to their first and second albums, like full reactions of them. They're again on my channel. I will link them down below if you want to go and have a look at those. But I feel now that I've listened to some of their earlier stuff, I can see the parallels between the earlier stuff and Arirang. So I can see where that speculation comes from, but I think it was nice that he basically confirmed that. I think he also basically alluded to the fact that it's a more mature version of what they used to do, but that it is going back to their roots. He talks a lot in other interviews as well about going back to their roots, but I think this is a very clear indication of what he means by that. I also really appreciated that he was given the opportunity to speak about his solo projects as well, because I don't know very much about them. I've not listened to any of the songs. I've probably heard little clips here and there of some of the songs, but I've not sat and listened to an album yet. I do plan to, so don't worry. I also don't think I've heard him talk about his solo projects either. I kind of figured that this would be the case with, you know, at least some of their solo projects, that it was an opportunity for them to make the music that they as an individual really wanted to make. So I appreciated hearing him speak about that. I think he also mentioned that his solo stuff was an opportunity to make music without the constraints of being a part of BTS, basically. I imagine he means a few different things there. Obviously, if you're part of a group, you have to make music that at least most people want to put out there and want to put their names on, but also you've got to come to a lot of agreements about what the music is going to be like. Whereas if it's like a solo project, you could just make whatever you want, and it makes me want to listen to them even more. I definitely wanted to anyway. The way that he spoke about them, I was just like, yes, definitely. There's a specific clip in his interview as well where he's kind of talking about if we don't challenge ourselves, then there's no point to making music. Like they could have just come out and released something that's really similar to what they've done before, but it kind of reflects, to me anyway, anything that's creative, you have to challenge yourself, you have to push yourself, otherwise are you really creating? I will put that clip here for you.
If we don't challenge anymore, then I think there's no reason that we should keep doing this as a team. So we have to show the world that we are still ongoing and still exploring and figure out like new things. I think we have to like have an experiment and push it to the edge even more. and just still not enough.
Also in this interview, and I see a lot of people talking about this part of it, and I agree that I feel like it's one of the main things that comes out of RM's interview, is where he's talking about how the military affected him and how he experienced that time. It made me really sad to listen to that, to be honest, because like I knew he'd had a hard time, but there's something about hearing it from him, how hard of a time that he had it, that was just heartbreaking to me, and it made me so sad. And that, I think, in particular, is a bit that has stuck with me after watching the interview. And him saying that the sorrow that he felt about that time is still with him also made me incredibly sad that he still carries that. But I do think that anybody who's been through something similar or has been through something that has left them with a similar effect, I think you can relate to that. So I have obviously not been in the military. I don't think that's going to be a shock to anybody, but I've been through things that have left me with trauma and sadness, and that sort of knowledge of, it's probably not going to go away 100%. I think him just talking about it in that way was really relatable. Second and last clip that I'm going to share from RM's interview is, I've seen it all over social media. People will put what he's saying from this clip over like really motivational like imagery, and so I had heard it, but I'd not heard it like literally from the source. I feel like as soon as it starts you'll know exactly which clip I'm talking about, but I just think the way that he says what he says here is just, as always, so eloquent and is so RM.
I think I'm still in the middle of just admitting like who I am. I'm like maybe too sensitive than the others, maybe the average, or I think too much. Sometimes I can't sleep. But do you want to die? No. I try to love the life, the skies, taking walks, good friends, drinks, music, interview. I'm still fighting the demons, I think maybe it could be forever, and forever is too long, like I said. But I just want to say one thing, like simply, in short, I think life is fun, because it's not because I'm BTS or I'm a star in the spotlight. I think just life is fun, and living is better.
So yeah, that is kind of it for RM's interview. I could go into loads and loads of detail, but at that point I'm just describing the interviews. So I just want to give my overall thoughts on them. I really liked his. Obviously, some of the things that he spoke about were very sad and not always nice things to hear about because you care about him. But I think it's important that he spoke about the things that he did, definitely. So, onto Jin's interview. I think the rest of the interviews, at least for the most part, were in Korean. There are a little bits here and there where they spoke in English, but for the most part were in Korean. I think the overarching thing that came out of Jin's interview for me is how much he loves BTS and how much he loves the other members. And I've seen that kind of thing from him before, but again, it's just more confirmation about how he loves them all and how much he loves BTS. One of the things that jumped out to me, so it was in one of the questions that Brian asked Jin, he spoke about the song Loser, which I have never heard, and I don't think I've heard anybody mention it, which doesn't mean that people don't talk about it. I just haven't come across anybody who mentioned it specifically. The way that he asked that question, I think he said something like it being a rock song that is even more of a rock song than like old school rock artists have released. It was something like that, but it was the way that he described it. I was like, oh my god, I need to listen to this song. I want to wait for like an album reaction. I'm gonna wait. To me, that is the mark of a good interviewer, is asking questions like that and getting the person watching the interview interested in the things that you're asking about. I would be anyway, because it's Jin and it's BTS, but you know what I'm getting. I do know that Jin likes rock music, but I think part of this interview was me fully realising how much Jin loves rock music. Like, it just takes me by surprise every time somebody says it, and I don't know why. I think potentially, you know what, I'm judging his taste on music based on his looks, and that is not fair, because he doesn't, to me, come across as a particularly like rocky person in the way that he dresses and the way that he styles himself. But that does not mean you can't like rock music, so I'm at fault for that. But yeah, that was one of the feelings I took away from this interview, is that, oh no, he really loves rock music. I also noticed that he does his classic like self-deprecation thing in this interview, where I think he's talking about his dancing skills and that he has a lot more to work on than maybe the other members, and I was just like, oh Jin, come on. I had this feeling of like, oh, I wish Tay was there. I wish Tay had been there, just to, like Tay does, just to like big him up, support him and be like, no, you're really good. I wanted somebody to be there there to be like, no, you're really good. What are you talking about? But it's a solo interview, so that's not gonna happen. And I did notice also throughout the interview he's incredibly humble about his own work. Incredibly humble. I will say though, the one thing he's not humble about is, I'll share the clip here after I've talked about it, but he does say that he is the most good looking member of BTS. He's like, oh, I've got that on everybody else. I do have that. And I just thought that was really funny. Because a part of me always worries he just thinks that that's all people like him for, but like he reinforces it himself, so I don't know. Here's the clip.
뭐 이거는 그냥 타고난 운이 좋았다고 봐야죠.
I can't take that away from you.
그쵸? 저 멤버들보다 그래도 얼굴이 조금 더 괜찮지 않나라고 생각하고 있습니다. 다들 너무 잘생겼지만. 저도 뭐라도 하나 더 멤버들보다 조금 더 뛰어나야죠.
I think one of the most important things that comes out of Jin's interview as well is the discussion about his lack of writing credits on Arirang. Because this is something that people, especially when the album first came out, this was something that people talked about constantly. And were like, oh, poor Jin, he wasn't allowed to, he couldn't do this, he couldn't do that. So I appreciated a really transparent discussion about that. And I think at this point, in terms of his writing credit, these interviews are incredibly honest. So I think you have to take what he says at face value. I do anyway, but I know that there will be people who are like, well, he was told what to say. It's like, come on. These interviews are incredibly honest, I think. So he talks about the fact that he was disappointed that he's got no writing credits on there. But he kind of counters that with, but I was on my solo tour for ARMY. I just think that was a really balanced way to look at it, that he was disappointed and he would have liked writing credits on there, but it wasn't possible because he was doing something for ARMY. Can we just let it rest now? I also really like the way that he talked about Coldplay. I think Brian Hyatt asked like his favourite rock bands or rock artists or something like that. And he was like, oh no, I can't really pick. But then he picked Coldplay ultimately. And I think, is he close friends with Chris Martin from Coldplay maybe? So I was like, oh, that's a good way to answer that. But then he was talking about his favourite song being Viva La Vida. I'm not a massive Coldplay fan. I have listened to their music, but that is my favourite song of theirs. We're not including My Universe, obviously. We can't include that. Aside from My Universe, Viva La Vida is my favourite Coldplay song. I also really appreciated hearing from his perspective what it's like to be the oldest in BTS. I will include it here for your viewing pleasure.
제가 맏형이지만 팀 내에서 사실 뭐 멤버들이 저에게 맏형 취급이라고 하기엔 좀 그렇고 이 맏형처럼 생각해 주지는 않고요. 제가 행동을 맏형처럼 하지도 않고. 근데 그래도 멤버들이 뭐 형 거리면서 이렇게 불편하지 않게 다가와 주는 것, 그게 제일 좋고요. 그리고 제일 안 좋은 점은 그 똑같은 개념으로 그래도 형인데 하면서 너무 친근하게 다가올 때 막 제 엉덩이를 때린다거나 뭐 그럴 때가 제일 안 좋은 점이라 생각해요.
I think the final point for Jin's interview, I didn't know that it was his idea for the current tour that they're doing to be so long. I think I just assumed it was supposed to be that long from the start because I don't really know much about how their tours have worked in the past and, you know, what they've done before. But then he specifically talks about it started as fewer dates, but that he was like, no, we need more dates. We need to go to more places. I didn't know that. I thought that was a really interesting thing to learn from this interview. I'm sure you all already knew this already, but I didn't know that. So yeah, overall, I really liked Jin's interview as well. I enjoyed learning more about Jin. I feel like Jin is one of the members that I don't know as much about. I appreciated learning more about him in this interview. On to Yoongi's interview. So the first thing I want to say about Yoongi's interview is he was so happy at the beginning of this interview. I don't know what prompted that, but I just noticed how happy he looked at the beginning. It was ridiculously cute. And again, I think the clip that I'm about to share from his interview, again, one of my favourite clips from his interview, but I think it is being shared quite widely, is where he talks about having no more negative feelings left. So I have not looked fully into sort of his solo stuff. I've heard some songs and I've seen people talk about it here and there. My impression from what I do know and what I've heard is that his Augusty time was a time of processing negative emotions for him, and now he's kind of through that, and that's what he means by no more negative feelings left. I've not seen him say it, so I'm not sure where it's from. If somebody can tell me, let me know. I think he said that he doesn't need Augusty anymore. That kind of time served its purpose. Here's the clip for you all.
네, 그 앨범을 끝으로 사실 부정적인 생각 같은 것들은 전혀
좀 남아있지 않더라고요, 몸에.
I think what I got throughout this interview with Yoongi is more of an impression of how he works and how he views things, at least currently. I don't know if he's always worked this way or he's always thought this way, but I appreciated that kind of insight into it. So he talks about when they were putting Arirang together that he didn't push for any particular song. You know, you hear about members saying like, oh, I really like this song or I wasn't so keen on this song. I have noticed you don't really hear that from Yoongi that often. And in this interview, he just talked about like, I didn't push for any in particular, and he tried to look at it in a really balanced way and like, what does the album look like overall, like how does it sound overall. And I don't know why I think this, because it's not like I know him, but I just thought that's very Yoongi of you. I just feel like he would look at things like that. Another tiny little thing from this interview, but I thought was worth mentioning, I really liked it that he picked Eminem as his favourite MC. Like I basically grew up with Eminem. I was never like massively into Eminem, but I listened to his songs, as anybody probably my age did when he first started releasing music. I think we all heard Eminem songs, but I was just like, oh, I liked Eminem. I don't know why, but I just really like that. Yeah, I think it's just nice hearing that they like artists that we like, oh, you like them too. And I did think throughout the interview he talks about things in a very calm way. And again, I don't know if he's always been like this. I think because he mentioned in this interview that he has no more negative thoughts, and you know, later on, I'll get to it, but later on he talks about not really looking at what people think of him and things like that. It makes me think that he maybe hasn't always thought like this. He talks about things in a, oh well, what will be kind of way, which I wish I could be like that so much, but like my anxiety and my overthinking takes over sometimes, unfortunately. And I just think a lot of the things that he talks about, he views them in a really positive way. Even though they might be negative things, he'll view it in a positive way overall. The next bit in his interview that I really liked, I think he's mentioned this somewhere before, or maybe it's just in the written version of the interview, I'm not sure, but I'd heard it before anyway. Is him talking about them carrying on until the 70s or the 80s, and it's more that I just really liked how happy he looked when he said that. Similar to Jin, I think you get a really good impression of how much he loves BTS and how much he loves the other members. I think he's somebody that doesn't talk about his feelings and his emotions that openly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I know about him so far, that's the impression I get. So like seeing him so happy talking about things like that, I think he's kind of rare. Maybe not really rare, but kind of rare, you know? And then the final clip that I want to share from Yoongi's interview is him talking about not caring about what other people think of him, which again, oh my god, I wish I could be like this so much. But it's almost like he just doesn't engage with things people say about him, so he doesn't care, you know? So yeah, I'll share that clip here for you.
뭐 그게 뭐 제 직업인데요. 뭐 사람들 그런 시선 속에서 사는 게 제 직업이다. 근데 뭐 가끔씩은 그냥 뭐 이게 뭐 편하지는 않은데, 근데 뭐 저도 반대로 별로 그런 거 뭐 그 사람들의 시선이나 사람들의 의견을 전혀 안 보기 때문에 뭐 저는 뭐 크게 딱히 뭐 그렇게까지 힘들다 이런 생각은 안 드는 것 같아요.
Hobie's interview. First of all, I want to talk about the fact that he started this interview with a dance. Because of course he did. Aside from that, I think Hobie's another member that I maybe don't know as much about as a person. All of these things are so far. This is not like I am not going to find out about these people. I am definitely gonna. I just haven't got there yet. But these interviews helped a lot, definitely. I think the first thing that I wanted to mention was it was interesting to hear him talk about the pressure of being successful and then the attention that comes with that, and how he was potentially kind of like uncomfortable with that and didn't really know what to do with that. I feel like you don't hear them talk about that as much, or again, maybe I just haven't come across it. It was interesting to hear him talk about that. I think the other thing that I really appreciated about this interview, and again with all of them, is that they talk about what it's like being a part of BTS, but then a large chunk of the interviews is them talking about being solo artists as well. And especially with Hobie, I think this is where you learn more about them as people, because their solo projects are what they want to put out as an individual. So hearing him talk about the box metaphor and how he used that in his solo work was really interesting. And him talking about the box being a metaphor for how he felt about himself and how he felt about his music. I took from it that he felt constrained, and that's what the box was. The box was constraining him. So him coming out of the box is like him doing his solo stuff. And I have heard people talk a lot about how he expressed himself much more in his solo projects and his solo performances. So I'm looking forward to all of them, but I'm definitely looking forward loads of Hobie's solo stuff, particularly his performances as well, just to kind of see how he performs solo, because I don't know that I've seen that before. I think this is where Jay came from. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but is his solo stuff where Jay originated? I would love to see how that came about. I love me some Jay. One of my favourite clips from Hobie's interview is where he talks about Pandora's box. Here's the clip of that.
결국은 사실 판도라의 상자로 인해서 저희 음악의 스토리가 사실 생긴 건데, 그러니까 그 이야기 자체가 상자가 열리는 순간 모든 악들이 나오지만은 그 상자가 닫혔을 때 결국 희망이라는 게 안에 있었는데, 그 결국 희망이 나와서 마주해야 될 것은 무엇인가, 그거를 고민을 해봤을 때 수많은 그런 악과 그런 존재들이 있을 텐데, 그 감정들을 찾아가면서 이제 저도 제 음악에 자연스럽게 녹이지 않을까 이제는. 예. 뭐 다양한 감정들이 있잖아요. 예. 살아가면서 그런 감정들을 마주하면서 뭐 그게 뭐 즐거움이든 아니면 뭐 사랑이든 아니면 좀 안 좋게 뭔가 안 좋은 감정들이든 그런 것들을 마주하면서 느끼는 그 모습 그대로를 뭔가 이제는 음악으로서 표현을 하고 싶은 부분이 있는 것 같아요. 예.
I also really appreciated the discussion that they had about the name J-Hope and what that represents and what that means to him, and how he talked about how the name has influenced him, but that he also feels incredibly responsible for it, which I thought was really interesting. Like, I think I kind of vaguely knew about where his name came from or what it means, but just hearing him talk about it specifically like that was really interesting. Another thing in Hobie's interview that I found interesting was him talking about love and romance, because I don't think that they do that often. Like, you'll see lives where it's usually when somebody in the chat is saying Youngie marry me, and there's like a whole discussion about like you should just get married already, you know, you get that kind of thing. But in this interview with Hobie, he's talking about it more seriously than that, and how it influences his music, his songwriting and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, and it was nice to hear them talk about normal things, you know, that grown men go through. I'm all for more of that. If they only need one person to tell them that it's okay to do that, or that we'd be happy, please take this as me saying we want that. I think most ARMY want that. And then the final clip that I want to share from Hobie's interview is basically the final little section of the interview where he talks about how the future looks. So here's that clip.
일단 요즘 드는 생각은 좀 거창해지면 안 될 것 같더라고요. 예, 그냥 우리가 모인 것 자체가 굉장히 큰 의미고, 우리가 함께 지금까지도 음악을 한다는 것 자체가 대단한 거다라는 생각을 하면은 되게 그 목표라는 게 사실 뭐 크게 의미가 없어지더라고요. 예, 그냥 지금 상황에 맞게끔 우리가 그리고 너무 즐거우니까 지금이 그런 감정들을, 지금의 감정들을 느끼면서 앞으로 나아가다 보면은 자연스럽게 많은 것들이 이루어지고 우리에게 다가오고 이렇게 되지 않을까라는 생각이 들어요. 그래서 그냥 너무 거창하지 않는, 그냥 우리가 지금처럼 계속 재밌게 음악하고 우리의 그런 사이와 그리고 팬분들과의 그런 정과 많은 그런 감정들을 오래오래 함께 계속해서 하고 싶다라는 감정 자체가 그냥 단순한 목표이자 희망인 것 같아요. 예, 하고 싶은.
Onto Jimin's interview. I find Jimin in interviews just incredibly cute. I don't know what it is. To me, it's the time when he seems the smallest, and I mean that in an affectionate way. Like, I just want to give him a hug. And I think the first thing that I took from his interview was the part where he's talking about him wanting to improve his singing voice. I was like, are you for real? I'm all for self-improvement and things like that, but I'm like, please do not think that your singing voice is not good enough, because my God, it is. I wanted to share the clip of Jimin, and I think this relates to my previous point as well. It's the clip about him talking about being a perfectionist, because I found it incredibly relatable. So yeah, that is one of the clips that I want to share with you.
뭐 제가 근데 뭐 완벽주의라기보다 그냥 누구나 잘 하고 싶은 마음이 있듯이 저도 그런 마음인 건데, 그거를 내려놓는다는 건 사실 일을 그만하고 싶다는 마음이 아닌가라는 생각이 들어서 뭔가 내려놓기가 힘든 것 같아요.
The next thing that I want to mention, I think just further reinforces how hilarious Jimin is. This comeback, I've just been discovering more and more and more how funny he is. Just naturally funny. Like, he's not even trying, I don't think. He's just funny. I think Brian, the interviewer, is asking him about him, like, doing well in the military and getting awards and stuff like that. And it's just Jimin saying that I just did that for vacation days. I just wanted more vacation days. I just found that so funny. One of my favourite things about Jimin is how unique his singing voice is. I think when I first listened to BTS and I identified, okay, that's Jimin singing, I was like, that is one of the most unique voices I have ever heard, and that is fully a compliment. So hearing him talk about his singing voice and how it's developed over time and like how he feels about it. And then I think Brian, the interviewer, mentioned, I think maybe he's interviewed Jimin before, but he mentioned something about Jimin saying that his voice is a little bit influenced by like traditional Korean singing as well, which I found really interesting. So yeah, because I find his voice so unique, I found that discussion of it really interesting. I'm going to say interesting a lot in this video, but I that's the main thing that came from these interviews. They were genuinely so interesting to watch. Like, I wasn't looking for like, oh, funny moments and funny clips. I was like, I'm learning about these people, and that to me is what makes a good interview. The second clip that I want to share of Jimin's interview, again, I think is a fairly popular one, and I have seen little bits of it, you know, on social media, is him talking about the song They Don't Know About Us and what the lyrics and the name previously were and what they mean. So him talking about like fans perhaps making them weak because they think that we think they're so wonderful that it almost doesn't leave room for failure, like it doesn't leave room for growth. So yeah, I'll share that clip here. One of my favourites from Jimin's interview.
원래 시작은 그 전날 저녁에 RM 형이랑 둘이서 대화를 하다가 이제 그 작업을 마치고 돌아와서 둘이서 이제 대화를 하다가 나오게 된 말이었는데, 원래 시작 워딩은 You make me weak이라는 워딩이었어요. 그 당신들은 나를 약하게 만든다. 왜냐하면 그게 원래 이제 팬분들한테 하고 싶었던 얘기인데, 여러분들이 존재해서 우리가 어떤 마치 정말 대단한 사람인 것처럼 항상 만들어주시기 때문에 우리가 성장할 기회가 없다. 당신들은 우리를 약하게 만드는 것 같다는 말을 해보고 싶어서 고민을 해보다가 나온 워딩이 They don't know about us였어요, 처음에. 이제 지금은 이제 각 멤버들의 생각과 의견이 들어가서 더 다양한 이야기가 됐지만, 처음에는 당신들은 우리가 얼마나 약한지 모른다, 이렇게 생각이 넘어가게 된 것 같아요. 유맹미 위기에서. 네.
I also really loved in Jimin's interview where he talked about the process of making the Arirang album, and like that it was almost like set up like a factory, that it was really almost like, I feel like the word is like systematic, of like, because I know they've talked about they had like the 4 studios and they would take it in turns in the different studios and things like that, but he really talked about it being like a production line, which I found interesting. But then I think also, having listened to Namjoon talk about the album making process more recently in his most recent live, I feel like it had to be like that when you've got 7 members and they've all gone off and done their solo stuff and they all have all of these like ideas. I think you have to have it regimented like that to get the job done. So yeah, that's Jimin's interview. His was one of the shortest, along with Jung Kook's. His was one of the shortest, so I think there was kind of like fewer things said, which is why I have fewer comments on him. Tae's interview, I think again Tae's maybe, I think I know a bit more about it and what he's like as a person, but I enjoyed learning the things that I did learn in this interview, definitely. So I said before that each interview sort of incorporated discussion about the Arirang album, but also their solo careers. And I think it's more noticeable in Tae's maybe and RM's is that each one also included something about their military service, which I think is important. I don't think we should be kind of like glossing over that, because I'd imagine it's a period of time that influenced them a lot. So the first thing that I've got about Tae's interviews, if I've interpreted this right, he talks about basically trying to put V aside in the military and just being Taeyong in the military. You know, like almost, I don't know if he views it this way, but the way that he described it was almost like V is his BTS persona, but he wanted to be Taeyong in the military. He wanted to just be himself and put the BTS bit aside. That's how I interpreted it. Let me know if you interpreted that differently, or if you think he meant something different by that. It did make me think that I wonder if the members that have basically a stage name, whether they do benefit a little bit from that, because they can kind of separate their almost true self from their BTS self. So V, Jeho, Suga, RM. I wonder if they have a slight advantage in that way, or maybe they don't even view it that way. I don't know. So the first clip that I wanted to share from Tae's interview is where he talks about how he approached the military. I feel like there was more discussion about the military in his interview, or maybe they're just the bits that jumped out to me, I'm not sure. Talking about working out, reading, using it as an opportunity to improve himself. So yeah, here's the clip.
일단 그게 일단 저한테는 제일 중요한 부분이었는데요. 어떤 부분이냐면은 일단은 군대라는 시간 자체가 저한테는 꽤나 긴 시간이라고 생각을 했었는데, 그 군대 안에서 제가 어떻게 하면은 이 시간을 헛되이 보내지 않고 되게 소중하게 잘 쓸 수 있을 것인가를 되게 많이 고민을 해봤는데, 일단은 내가 생각하는 그 가치관이나 뭔가 몸이나 뭐 운동도 그렇고요. 그리고 책도 많이 읽었고요. 뭐 이런 것들 하나하나를 일단은 다시 정리하고 생각해보고 나를 한번 다시 뒤돌아보서 과연 나는 어떠한 사람으로 최종적으로 만들고 싶어 하는 사람인가를 다시 한번 뭔가 정리해보는 시간을 가졌었던 것 같아요. 그래서 그 1년 반이라는 시간 동안 정말 운동도 열심히 했고요. 책도 많이 읽었고 음악도 정말 많이 들었고, 그리고 뭔가 마음을 다시 잡는 계기가 되지 않았나 싶어요, 저는.
The second clip that I want to share from Tae, just because I don't know, I just found it so endearing in a weird way, is him talking about how he can bench press the most in BTS. Like, he's the strongest in BTS, which I found funny because Jung Kook is always talked about as being the strongest in BTS. Here's the clip.
So you can bench press more than anyone else in the band, is what you're saying?
뭐 당연하죠.
What's your bench? How much are you benching?
저는 105까지는 했었는데, 근데 이제 그 부대 안에서는 105도 사실상 조금 애기 취급받는 거긴 했었어요. 왜냐면은 저희 부대 친구들이 다 약간 어디 복싱 국가대표, 뭐 레슬링 국가대표, 뭐 도대회 우승, 뭐 이런 정말 운동하는 친구들로만 모였던 부대였기 때문에 그 친구들에게 비하면은 전 아직 애기지만 뭐 멤버들이랑 비한다면 뭐.
I had to ask my partner who does weights at the gym. I was like, so, I mean, like how much in terms of weightlifting is 105 kilos? And he put it into perspective for me, and I'm like, damn, that's a lot. So I fact checked that. He said, I fact check things. But I think we need proof. I need to see, not that he can lift 105 kilos. I don't need proof of that. I believe him. I need to see proof that he is indeed the strongest in BTS. They all need to lift now. I need to see. I'm joking, of course. Today's another one where I don't really know much about his solo work. I've heard that people absolutely love it. I've heard people talk about the Layover album. So him talking about that album in this interview, I really appreciated hearing more about it. I really liked how he describes things. I always really like the way that Tae describes things. So him talking about that album being a way of showing one of the many colours within him, like the way that he described that was just so nice. I was just like, oh, that is such a good way to describe that. And I think he also mentioned that it's almost called Layover because it's a bridge between two parts of him, I think, is what I took from it. And the final thing for Tae's interview is he talks about acting. Now, I know that he's already in a K-drama. I think it's called, I'm not sure how to say it, so please don't roast me if I say it wrong. Is it Hwarang? Have I said that right? So I know he's in, is it almost like a historical K-drama? I don't know what it's about, but I have been spoiled. So in case you don't know anything about it or his character or anything, click away and I'll put a timestamp somewhere of like when you can come back in, okay? Because I was spoiled, and I know it's old and I shouldn't be spoiled, but I was spoiled. But I nearly said it, but have you gone? Okay. So his character dies and I was like, oh, Spoiler. So I have now been spoiled for that. So that now I assume he's not in the whole of the series, but I will watch it regardless. When I get round to watching more K-dramas, I will watch it anyway, I suppose. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about with this point is he said that he wants to act more, and I'm like, yes, please, yes, please. I've always thought that all of them could do acting to a certain extent, but I think particularly Tae and Jin could definitely, but I know he's not really that interested in it. I would love to see him act more, definitely. Yeah, that's it for Tae's interview. Particularly in this comeback, when I've been watching more behind the scenes stuff, I just always come away thinking like how adorable that man is, because I used to think, oh well, in the older stuff he's adorable because he's younger, you know, he's just a little baby, that's why he's adorable. But no, that grown man is adorable, and I got that from this interview as well. Even though he's talking about things like bench pressing and stuff like that, I'm like, no, you're still adorable though. So last but most certainly not least, we've got Jung Kook's interview. So Jung Kook's is the shortest interview of all of them. Whose was the longest? Let me double check. So Namjoon's was the longest, which I think makes sense. He's the leader. But yeah, Jung Kook's was the shortest. But I'm looking at my notes and I do have quite a few notes. So let's see. The first thing that I've got written down is, and I'll read it word for word, the cute clap he started the interview with. I think you went like that. It was so cute. Anyway, important points now. I thought the part where he said that, like, he doesn't agree that he's a pop star. Like, he likes that people look at him that way and he appreciates it, but he doesn't see himself that way. And then I think Brian, the interviewer, asked, well, what needs to happen for you to feel that way? And he said he needs to learn English. Which I thought was really funny, but then the more I thought about it, I thought, to them, does pop star mean kind of like, is that a Western thing? And is that why he thinks he needs to learn English? Because that's more of a Western artist thing. I don't know. What do you think about that? Am I thinking too much into it there? So the first clip that I wanted to share from Jung Kook's interview is him talking about his English pronunciation and why his English pronunciation is so good in his songs. And it obviously boiling down to him wanting to make fans not uncomfortable when listening to his music. I thought it was really sweet.
일단은 듣는 귀가 뭐 좀 좋은 편인 것 같기는 하고, 근데 어쨌든 뭔가 한국어가 아니라 어쨌든 저한테는 다른 나라의 언어잖아요. 근데 이제 그 언어를 쓰는 사람들이 어쨌든 들었을 때 뭔가 거북하거나 뭔가 뭐 마음에 안 들거나 그러면 안 되니까, 그래서 개인적으로 노력을 한 게 되게 많기는 해요.
I think an overall impression that I got from Jungkook's interview is how carefree he is, and I think from what I know about them, I feel like that probably comes from the fact that he's the youngest in the group, and I think you can be more carefree when you're the youngest in a situation like that. So I got the overall impression of that, but it did make me quite envious about how carefree he is. I'm like, I want to be that carefree, and I think I could be if I worked on it, but I'd have to work on it, you know? I'm not naturally a carefree person. I really love the discussion that they had about creating the song Hooligan, because I did know that it's like his song, he developed it, he created it, he worked on it the most, so I did already know that, but it was just the way that he talked about how he felt about it and that he felt good about it because the other members really loved it. Like, that was the thing that made him happy, was that the other members loved the song, and I was just like, that's so sweet. It's just Jungkook being cute, as always. The second clip that I want to share of Jungkook's interview is where he talks about his memory and how bad it is. And I'm sharing this because this is what my memory is like. This is the best description. It sounds like what your memory is like a lot of the time if you've got ADHD. But anybody that has issues with short-term memory, this is the best description of it I've ever heard.
근데 평생 없을 수도 있어요. 왜냐면 제가 어떠한 기억을 오래 가지고 있지 않아요. 되게 잘 까먹고, 약간 그 컴퓨터 보면 이제 SSD가 있잖아요. 그래서 저는 그 용량이 좀 작은 것 같아요.
And then finally for his interview, again touching on him being the youngest of the group, I was actually, well, maybe only a little bit surprised, but I was a little bit surprised how much he actually loves being the youngest in the group. I thought there might be some negatives to it. He absolutely loves it, apparently. Like sometimes if I'm the youngest in a group of people, I get a little bit annoyed when people treat me like the youngest, or like treat me like I don't know enough, or like I don't have enough experience. But I think he like really like revels in the feeling of being the youngest. And maybe that's, like I've said before, maybe that's why he's so carefree. Maybe that's why he's so happy about it, is because he's in a group where being the youngest is not a thing to look down on. They look after him and they make sure that he's okay and they let him be himself. So maybe that's why he's so happy about it. It took me by surprise just how happy he is about it. That's Jung Kook's interview. As with all of them, I think, before I get on to sort of general comments about the interviews, I think each interview just really demonstrated what each member is like as a person. I think that's one of the things I took away from it. So I think somebody coming from the outside and not knowing who BTS are, or maybe just not knowing that much about the members, I think from these interviews you will learn a lot. So, general thoughts about the interviews as a whole. I think I'm probably including the group one in here as well, because the group one was excellent as well. It's just obviously difficult interviewing 7 people at the same time in a different language. I thought all of the questions were really well thought out, and they were tailored to each member. So while every interview did talk about the development of Arirang, the solo projects, the military, I think the questions were asked in a really like personalized way and in a really interesting way for each member. It showed that Brian the interviewer had done his research. The quality was consistent across all of them, so I really felt like he'd done his research. And I think this is maybe a given for it being Rolling Stone, but I really appreciated the huge focus there was on their music. So you see a lot of interviews where it's just asking them really superficial questions, which are fine, they're entertaining, but I appreciated how much of it was about creating music. And again, I think you would expect that from Rolling Stone. I think you can watch these and actually learn things from the interviews. They're not solely for entertainment purposes. They are entertaining, but you learn things from them as well, which I think makes an amazing interview. Similar to the Zayn Low one, I learned things from that. I kind of feel okay comparing these to the Zayn Low interview. To me, they're on a par with each other, I think, in terms of quality and the amount of research put in. I mentioned this earlier, but I will mention it here again in sort of the general comments. I think each interview allowed each member to shine. So I don't think there was ever a point where the questions were focused on another member. The questions were purely focused on the member in front of him. It allowed them to shine. It gave them space to talk about things that they maybe really wanted to talk about. And I feel like their personalities really shone through. I don't think you can necessarily say that their individual personalities shone through in the group interview. What did shine through in that one is their group dynamic, which I think is part of why people love them. It's part of why I love them, is the way that they are together and that kind of dynamic. While you didn't get the individual personalities in the group one, I do still think it allowed them to shine in it as a group. One tiny little comment that I just want to add in here, it's very superficial, but I just wanted to add in. I just really like the little intro and outro clips of them, like really focused in on them. I just really love that. That's all I'm gonna say. But anyway, before I melt into the floor in this heatwave, I'm going to wrap the video up here, I think. What did you think about the individual interviews? I know a lot of people wanted me to react to them individually, so I know a lot of you like them, but what were your favourite things from the interviews? I hope you enjoyed this video, which is different from my reaction stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing my thoughts about these interviews. Let me know if you want me to do more things like this. The majority of my content will still be reaction-based stuff, but now and then I like doing something a little bit different. I would very much appreciate it if you haven't already, that you can subscribe, like the video, comment, all of the things, hype the video, all of the things. It really helps me out. It gets my videos out there more and it brings more ARMY in for me to talk to. The main reason I am here is to talk to other ARMY about BTS. Thank you very much for watching and I hope I see you in the next one.